Hello, so I have a branding problem. Everyone thinks my company's name is Hershey, and I'm going to get sued, but it's Heresy. No problem. And that's because I believe that the status quo really isn't working for advertising. And I come from an advertising agency background, not media, and I'm one of those creatives, the other side. One of the things I'm going to talk about first, though, is a book I'm writing with a colleague, or a creative colleague, ex-advertising guy, about what's wrong with the industry. We believe that the industry has gone through massive, horrible change, going from crafts to bean counter land, and it's taking the industry for a ride where the marketers don't trust us anymore as advisors because we've let them down so many times. So we've done a Kickstarter for this book because we're doing an app that's also going to reinvent the book itself. But we've talked to over 120 advertising executives and marketers, brand guys, journalists, vendors, trying to get every perspective around the world about what has happened with advertising and what we need to do to fix it. So I want to take you through some of the heresies that we've uncovered in our talks around the world really quickly, and then I'm going to go into what it takes to work with creatives when you're data people, and why we ignore you, and how to get us not to ignore you. So one of the first heresies we uncovered, of course, was the obvious, which is that everything is still in silos. And even though we've been talking for the last 15, 20 years in some cases about integration, very, 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 very few agencies do it. And the successful ones we've talked to are the ones that have done it, like Goodbee or Droga 5. There's this massive ego in the business still, where TV is the king of everything and digital is that still, even though it's making such headway, it's still the red-headed stepchild. And yet digital is really the red thread that runs through everything as we all are becoming more and more aware. Again, the sad thing is that we all talk about these things and we all are aware of these things, but very few are putting them into actual practice. And that ego about television means that if you work in digital, the people in television and print to some degree think that you're not really good enough to work in advertising, but of course that's not true. A big fear that we found from people, of course, is by moving into digital, they have to become engineers and programmers and technologists. And obviously, you just need to understand about the lay of the land and what the opportunities are. You don't have to be a programmer or an engineer to understand what's possible. I'm rushing through these because I want to have time for the workshop. Ageism is alive and well in advertising. If you turn 40, you might as well find a new career because the big agencies won't have you anymore. And now, I guess, if you're turning 35, it's probably getting younger and younger as they're hiring younger and younger people, thinking that because people are immersed in this as they grew up, they're going to understand it much better than older people. 35-year-old creative directors won't hire anybody older than them because they barely understand it, they think, so how could anyone possibly understand it if they're older? But of course, as Lee Clow will tell you, that's crap. We have been working with clients as the royalty. We go on bended knee with our pitches, and we say, what do you think of this? And then you bounce it off them, get the feedback from all the corporate officers, and then have to go back and redo your campaign. If you involve them from the very beginning as team members, as people who have a vested interest in the idea and what you're doing, strangely it becomes much easier to sell through, and you have an advocate internally. Again, these are sort of obvious, common sense things, but very few agencies are doing them. Something that we've heard talked about at this conference, and probably for the last couple of years, is instead of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to then invest millions of dollars in some campaign after spending 6 months trying to ideate it, better to work on smaller things, small ideas, numerous ones of them, put them in the actual environment, just like the speaker 2 speakers ago said. Instead of putting them in an unnatural environment where you don't have emotion, put them in the real environment where you're going to encounter these people, or these people are going to encounter your campaigns, and that's the internet, mobile, social environments, everything that we have now. There's no reason we can't put it there, let them see it, test it, see if they like it, and then grow the ones that succeed, and then learn from our failures. To be profitable, agencies do not need to. If there were no advertising agencies in existence and we were to have this great idea of marketing and creating an agency around it, they would look pretty much nothing like what they look today. We're basing our models on things that were from the the 20th century, from the mid-20th century. So we have these giant facades in the big agencies. You have these big networks. You have all these layers of people in between. You have custom infrastructure that you develop so that you can show how you're different from your client or from your competitors to your client. And really, it's about the fact that we've changed to just getting paid for media and for execution. So they need to find other ways to generate funding, so they bill like lawyers, and they have these massive offices and structures that they don't need. We've been giving away our what makes us us for so long now that it's just become a knee-jerk. So I said we charge for media and execution, and we give away the creativity and the thinking, even though everybody says that talent is so scarce in our industry, it's very hard to find people who understand these things, et cetera. And then we just take that valuable resource and we just give it away, turn it into a commodity, make it seem like anybody can do it, and then we have these problems of differentiating ourselves and keeping talent. We used to have a lot of time as creatives to think of great solutions to creative problems. We used to have all sorts of processes we could go through. We could take 6 weeks and go to the park and museums and get inspired by all sorts of other work out there and conversations. Now we have about 2-3 days to come up with something or you're fired. So we need a little time to think about things if you want really good strategy. Something that's been missing from the agency world for a long time that used to exist in all the unique cultures we used to have, loyalty. Now, if you've spent 20 years clawing your way up to get to a big position and have a nice salary finally after being taken advantage of for many years, you're the first to go if a client walks out the door. If a global client is realigned, the holding companies, owned agencies will get rid of 70, 100 people. And who they get rid of? The people who make the most money, which are probably the people who are the most valuable, but the bean counters don't think of it that way. So there's no return loyalty for the 120 hours a week we put in, how we sacrifice our lives, we eschew our family, all for this brand that we work for, and it's not reciprocated. Ad agencies, I said, they make it for media buying, of course, and executions, and a few other lawyerly billing techniques. But really, what we can do if we want to keep the talent and keep credibility and keep ourselves afloat is to look at what we used to do, which was we created content that we owned and licensed and everything. There's no reason with these new apps that we have out there and all the content, the branded content and everything that we're creating for our clients, that we can't own and license and create platforms and things that will give us new life and enable us to attract new talent. Brands can bring creative strategy in-house. This is something that my brethren used to say, well, we don't have to worry about the company taking it, the client doing it themselves, because who could they possibly hire that would go work at a place like Dell, a corporate environment, or one single client? It was the word. And you have all this bureaucracy, and you don't have the other people that talk the talk like you. And so who would go and do that? Well, things have completely changed. Marketers now understand that they cannot silo their divisions. They understand that marketing can't be stuck in a corner somewhere and treated like an internal agency or an internal vendor. They, like the clients I mentioned earlier, have to be part of the discussion from the beginning. And because they're the decision makers, it's the brand itself, you're creative on the internal team and you're there from the beginning working out these ideas, they'll trust you. You'll have the authority to make decisions. You won't have to go on bended knee to the client and pitch something. You can work within the organization and do what it is that you believe needs to be done without a problem. So they're creating environments now that are attractive to people like me, whereas the advertising agencies are making environments that are completely unattractive to people like me. In fact, my last gig, as mentioned, was the Global Creative Director on Dell, Director of Digital Strategy and Operations, for the E word, Enfatico. Any gasps? Any pity? It's a really, really new world out there. And I went into Enfatico thinking that either I'll be able to build the agency that's truly integrated and will operate the way that we believe it should be finally, or it will fail like everybody predicted. But either way, I'm not going to work for anybody anymore. So someone like me, I went out and started my own agency, Heresy, 3.5 years ago. And there is such infrastructure out there now, there's such a mindset that's acceptable to this that you can do it virtually. So I've got many, many clients. I've met 2 of them physically in my life. I've got people all over the world in this new model, sort of like the last speaker, Richard was saying. I've got people in Singapore. I've got people in London. I've got people in Australia, New York, Denver, San Francisco, and Austin, where I live. And we are able to use the tools and facilities that are out on the internet to do all the work that we used to do in the brick and mortar agency. Only we're not having to charge the client for everything that we're doing. We charge for our thinking. We don't charge for our infrastructure, for our connections to the internet, for a big facade in our lobby, So there's a new universe and a new paradigm that's occurred thanks to all this technology, which means things are completely shifting. So the talent can easily leave the agencies and move over to the clients or on their own. Now, for the heresy that needs to become the status quo, that is relevant to you guys. So for people like me, we need to understand that instead of just relying on the gut and experience and storytelling that you hear about, data, the insights gleaned from data can make things so much stronger for us. So the real question is, why do we ignore all the data? And you've heard some stuff over the past couple of days about why that is, but really, it comes down to, I got into this business and my contemporaries got into the business because we enjoy imagining things. We enjoy coming up with ideas and seeing them realized. It's as simple as that. And we have been able to successfully do this job for a long time, and some of us have been successful at that, and others have hit roadblocks and found other ways around that. But we've all had careers, we've all been hired, we've all been trusted to do things, and nobody has told us, I know you did good work, and I know the campaign went well, and everybody's happy, but you need to incorporate data, or it's just not going to work for us. They say to us, hey, that's a great campaign. Here's an award. Here's the next job, whatever. So we feel that what we're doing is perfectly acceptable. I'm an Imagineer, not a statistician. We, as I mentioned, only have a couple of days now instead of the weeks and months we used to have to come up with ideas. So if you're under all this pressure, it would seem that, hey, here are all these wonderful tools for you to use. This will make your job so much simpler. You can just focus on these insights and move on. But the way that we get the data, generally, no offense to anybody who gave me data before in any project, you just read stats at us. You just, not even to us, at us, as if we're not even in the room, just reading it to us. Or you put it into an appendix at the back of the brief, which is like a brief, but it's 40 pages long of appendices, which we don't read. We don't pay any attention to whatsoever because we don't have the time or the interest. And we don't see what the net result is going to be. We still have our jobs, we're still getting awards, we're still getting patted on the back, we're still enjoying the work that we're producing. And our past experiences have shown that all these things that come up to try to change the way that we do our work, they never amount to anything. Just like in corporate life and in agency life, HR and executives always have these initiatives. They put us in pods, they reorganize, they do all these crazy things. And at the end of the day, it always goes back to the way it was. And what we thought was the right way seems to be the right way for our clients and for our consumers and for the results. So we don't take any stock into it because we have a process that works for us. And here's that process. It's also not brain surgery, but this is what we do on a daily basis. And so in order to insert anything else, you need to understand what we do and where it's appropriate for others to come in our egotistical way of saying things. So what we do is we examine the creative problem, what the client's business goals are, if they're told to us, and exactly who the audience is. Now, this is a perfect place for data to come in, but all we tend to get are 18 to 34 females who are college educated and live in Wisconsin, just basic stuff like that, which is good because we need to know who we're talking to, but not, from our point of view, we don't need to know a whole bunch. We just need to know generally some insights about them. We need to understand what their pain points are. Again, the creative problem we're trying to solve for the client, but we also like to think about the target users. What are their goals? What are they trying to accomplish? Or even if they don't know they're trying to accomplish it, what are they dealing with? Then we think about, we put ourselves in that place of that person. We emote. We take on the persona and we say, if I were that person, I was having these problems, what would I be responsive or positively respond to in that? I mean, just again, obvious things, but we go through this process very carefully in many different ways of figuring out those pain points and what it is that they will accept. We try to understand the unique selling proposition of the client's brand and the particular product and service. We focus quite a bit on that for differentiation, obviously, with our competitors. So we want to have something unique that can fit into a creative story. It's as simple as that. Who are we doing? Who are we trying to reach? Why are we trying to reach them? What are the issues they go through? What are ways that would solve those issues if we were those people? And how do we tell a creative story that will set our brand apart from the competition? But that's the basic, obvious process. So where can data come in that would be appreciated, and how can you approach us? Well, planners are great at this, portraying data as insights. But even the British planners have problems with us, too, because they tend to get wrapped up in those insights, and they start going off on tangents, and they don't really focus on what we're trying to accomplish. So the net result of that is that we feel like a lot of time is wasted, just sitting there and having these interesting conversations, but are not focused enough. So we need planners and analysts to help us sit there and distill what's important out of that instead of giving us these giant appendices in these briefs. It would be very helpful if you, as you distill these things, you take them and put them into insight buckets. They're all different. These insights would be completely different for each type of category of business. But you put a title of what the insight is that we have already talked about, and then you put the data points that are aligned with those insights so that we can just have a simple reference sheet. As we're thinking and we're bouncing things off each other, we have to go, oh, but wait, do they like this? Or what have they encountered before? Or whatever factoids need to come up, we need to have something to go to. And we tend to just either do it anecdotally or go on the internet and do something quickly, but we rarely will go back to the binder of data because it's not written, it's not laid out in any kind of way that works the way that we think. In fact, the worst thing you can do is have abbreviations and acronyms. It makes your life so much easier to say CPM and everything and go through that litany of jargon. But for us, it turns us off more than anything else. The second we start hearing acronyms or abbreviations, we're gone. We're in our minds thinking of the problem and how we're going to solve it ourselves. So you need to couch it in a way that is for a 3-year-old, that is very simple. This is what we're trying to solve. These are the insights. Here are the little points under the insights that might help you in your storytelling. And I've been in this business for over 25 years, and I do not believe even one time has anyone come back to us after a campaign, let alone during a campaign, to tell us what the results have been or are. The promise of digital is that you are able to adjust on the fly and if you don't have enough lift, you can change something and make it better. And the fact is that we never know what's happening. All we know is when we're fired or somebody comes on and says, hey, good job on that. Hey, let's do another one of those. And that's all we get. So some of you may say, oh, yeah, I send emails, I put them on the list, and they get the data report just like the clients do at the end. But if that's true, again, it's in a format that is completely useless to people like us. Those scorecards and things, those spreadsheets, are antithetical to the way that we think or care. I mean, I'm speaking generally, of course, but it's really obnoxious. So I've got to go on to the workshop because we only have 11 minutes left, and I wanted to give you 10 minutes to think about this and 5 minutes to report, so we'll see what we get. But now that you know generally what the process is that we go through, I thought it would be good if you could think of one of your clients and one of your target audience for those clients, and think of digital techniques for reaching these people, focusing on entertainment, information, or utility, which are the 3 buzzwords you've probably been hearing a lot today. The idea is to think about the life cycle in a day, or so, think of a day in the life of one of your target audiences for one of your clients. From the moment they wake up in the morning to when they go to bed at night, where are they going to encounter social, digital, mobile? Are they going to be on a bus, going to school and they have time? Are they going to be in a conference like this, not listening to the speaker and looking up stuff? Where could they be, and how can you reach them? And what are some welcomed ways of reaching them. So the point of this is what we go through as creatives. We have to think of the problem, where we can reach them, how we can reach them that is non-interruptive, non-disruptive, that's actually welcomed and appreciated, hence the entertainment, information, and utility focus. So if you perhaps go through this exercise, you might see what is important to us, and then where the data might help you. Like if you knew this, oh, well, I would have done something completely different if I had only known these things. So given what you know about your data points for your clients, why don't you take 7 minutes or something and work together with your table. Just pick one client for your table, do the life cycle or the day in the life cycle, and see what you come up with. See how fast time flies? So let's wrap it up in the next 20 seconds, and then we'll ask for a volunteer to take us through the day in the life of their target and what ideas they've come up with. Okay, if anyone's interested in showing what you've done, please raise your hand, and we'll have somebody come around with a microphone. If anybody did it. I'll have to pick people, and then if they haven't done it, it will be a little embarrassing, but okay. Up here, the first table. So perhaps tell us who the client is and who the target audience is, and just see where the touch points are.
Yeah, so the client is Kashi. Kashi is one of our clients, and what we were thinking about from when the client wakes up in the morning, that there's two different targets. We have the purchaser target, who is she's a definite female SKU. It's a typical CPG brand. But when I was thinking about like people waking up in the day, the consumption is actually everybody who eats that in the household. So the idea from a digital perspective is we can start to partner with people who do specific apps, say an alarm clock app. And there's the pro version of the alarm clock app. Well, we'll give that to you for free if it's branded Kashi. So every time they wake up in the morning to their meditative music, as it slowly wakes them up, they're getting that branded message just before they go in to the kitchen, increasing the likelihood that they'll buy that product. If it's partnering with someone like Runkeeper for the Kashi bars, which are high in protein, we do the same thing for the pro version of the app. So as they're getting their run during their day and they need a little more energy, they're getting that Kashi branded message and therefore can take it. And then it can cascade down there. So we subsidize the purchase of the pro version of the apps in order to provide a branded experience through that, targeting the consumption behavior, not necessarily the her purchase behavior target. So, because if they eat more, she buys more.
So I suppose you have insights that say that these women are more health conscious,
yes,
so that they would be running and they would have
yes,
these issues. So that's great. So looking for different areas where they have downtime and they're looking for something to help them solve a problem. So in this case, a utility, both with the alarm clock and the Runkeeper, keeping track of your efforts. And the important thing though there is to make sure that that the message equals your intention. So you're trying to help them do something, but you don't want them to have to pay a price for that help. So if you say the price is you have to watch a 20-second spot before you go for your run, that would be a complete turnoff for somebody. No, you're subsidizing it. So more of like a sponsorship than a message, right? But the message is more subtle. It's Kashi understands that you care about your health, and so we are helping you in all aspects of your life. So that's a very good example. Anybody else? Or do we have any time? No, probably not. We don't have any more time, but thank you. And so you can see that the insight into the target audience about the fact that they're health conscious, of course, which is tied into the brand anyway. But any insights like that will help us think of how can we provide something that they will appreciate and not reject or feel is obnoxious or oversold or anything, but actually provide some sort of value, because people are out there looking for entertainment, they're browsing like crazy, they're looking for new technology to help them with their activities or interests, and you can provide that for them. We can only know about that if we have those insights framed in a way that's human and emotional, and that will help us make a connection to the target audience. Bye. Thank you very much.